Bill saw him and was intrigued. They offered, he signed, and then the plan was to redshirt him as a freshman. But then in practice, Ochai showed signs hey, he might be able to help us. And then they had some injury stuff. So they pulled the red shirt in January. And of the players who finished that season with Kansas, because they had, again, some injury stuff, Ochai Agbaji, as a freshman who was planning to redshirt, he ended up being the third leading scorer, averaging 8.5 points per game. Averaged 10 points per game as a sophomore, 14.1 as a junior, and then had a real breakthrough season as a senior, which is why he's now projected as a top 20 pick. Put me in charge, and he's a top 10 pick. And I'm with you. I don't know that he'll be a top 10 pick. In fact, I'm skeptical of it based on what other mock drafts are showing people. But how about this? Here's my prediction. There will not be 10 better players from this draft than Ochai Agbaji.
There's a case that you wind up being correct on this. He shot 41% from three last season, and one of the biggest reasons why I think the winning matters a lot. If Kansas had lost in the Elite Eight and not won a national title, I'm not sure that's going to drastically impact Ochai Agbaji's stock. But I think the fact that he helped guide Kansas to a national championship in the manner in which he did, obviously a huge boost in this direction, as it should be. We should value winning. He is the representative of a national championship winning team. He's got the talent. He's got the shooting ability. He's got the defensive aptitude, as I said before. These things should all contribute to him becoming a lottery pick there. But his growth and evolution in this past season have been magnificent. I remember talking to Self after the Champions Classic, and Agbaji, who played well in that game. Let me bring up the stat line just real quick here, because we were there. They beat Michigan State 87-74. In that game, Agbaji had 29 points overall. Played really, really well in 36 minutes. And the thing that Self mentioned then is he said, I wanted to see Agbaji become more assertive, more confident, more vocal on the floor. He had been getting there over the course of the past few years, but he was not there. And even that night, he said, I still got to see what he's going to look like, come see me middle of December, et cetera, et cetera. I see Kansas again at the start of December when they play a random game against St. John's on a Friday night at the UBS Center where the Islanders play hockey. Kansas wins that going away. Christian Brown winds up having the best night that night, but Agbaji still goes for 23, had 7 boards. I talked to myself again. He said, no, this guy, he's where I want him to be. Him actually playing both the role we are asking him to play and actually showing that he has the assertiveness, that there's not an inhibitive factor to his game that is wearing away. And because of this, he's going to get drafted. At that point, Agbaji is still considered, late first, second round kind of pick. And then as we moved on into February and March, it became more clear that he would be a first round pick. And even still, I remember us talking on a pod because someone had mentioned to me about Agbaji and him being potential late first round sleeper kind of pick. And I was of the understanding that maybe his stock really hadn't reached the lottery level, but it's basically there now. Ceiling, I'll put ceiling at 7. Cheapy's got him at 7. Floor, he's a senior, so I really hope that's not held against him. It shouldn't. It certainly should not. I guess I'd put his floor at 20, probably. He could fall out of the lottery. He has no business falling out of the lottery, but I'm trying to give our listeners kind of a real gauge. So it's a bit of a wide gap overall. Normally, if we're talking on these podcast profile, prospect episodes, if we're into the 7th person, the floor is not going to be usually out of the lottery. Agbaji realistically is. I don't think he will or should, but we always have to allow for the potential that some guys will continue to have their stock rise in the next 2.5 weeks, and Agbaji will still be seen as he will be a safe pick. And you're saying there won't be 10 players better than him when we look up X number of years down the road. I think there's a real chance for that because the shot it's pure, it's smooth, it's reliable, it's good off the catch. Playmaking is just okay. I think he will have a ceiling to him, and that's why I think he won't go in the top 10. I think that evaluators will look at him, GP, and say, is this the kind of guy where if we're going to spend a top 10 pick on him, we are going to see him as a true playmaker, create off the dribble, get his own shot off the dribble, and be more than someone who is, 3-and-D, I guess. Some might not think that. And so that might be what prevents him from going high. But I just think his floor is just amazingly good. And he should stick for a long, long time in the league. Total get it guy. And if I was a fan of a team on draft night and my franchise drafted Ochai Agbaji, I would be quite happy because I know that I'm getting a player that's going to be great in the locker room. And I would believe that he is going to get minutes. Production depends on the team and situation. He's going to get real minutes right away next season. He will be a contributing factor no matter where he goes to.
There won't be 10 players from this draft better than him next season. And then when we revisit it 5 seasons from now, I don't think there'll be 10 players better than him from this draft then. You mentioned the assertiveness. He went through the draft process after his junior year and actually listened to the feedback and did basically everything they asked him to do. Be more assertive, improve your three-point shot. And the assertiveness stuff was evident right from the jump, like you pointed out. You mentioned he scored 29 against Michigan State. To me, the more important stat, he took 17 shots. He was going and getting it. Second game of the season, he took 16. Third game of the season, he took 19. And in that stretch, he was also 10 of 24 from three-point range. So in the first 3 games of the season, he was, he took 17, 16, 19 shots, and he was consistently making, shots from the perimeter, doing everything NBA evaluators wanted to see. And, Bill has described him off the court as pretty much perfect. So there's no known red flags whatsoever. You're getting a high quality person based on everything I've ever heard, and a guy who I think just, does he have a ceiling as high as Jabari Smith? No, of course not. But you need guys like this in the NBA. Good teams have guys like this in the NBA. 6'5" athlete, guard multiple positions well, and reliably make three-pointers. Like shot 41% from 3 on 6.5 attempts per game this past season. That's high volume. Great percentage, high volume. Do I wish he was 3 inches taller? Yeah, I wish I was 3 inches taller or 6 inches taller. But at worst, I think he's a switchable wing who can be a great catch-and-shoot perimeter guy. And like I said, those dudes are super valuable in today's NBA. Great in the corners, quick release. And he made NBA threes while he was at Kansas. So the further back line, I don't think is going to be a real problem for him. And you mentioned this earlier. He is 22 years old. But that, to me, just means he's ready to play, ready to help, and more of a sure thing. And if you're Portland, which is picking 7th, and you're trying to get help for Damian Lillard, how many guys are more helpful immediately than Agbaji at that point in the draft? Also, to swing it back to my hometown, Desmond Bane was 22 when the Grizzlies took him in the NBA draft. At 23, he looks like a possible future all-star, maybe max player. Now, I'm not saying that, and that's why you take 22-year-olds. I'm just saying Desmond Bane came from the same league. He had an undeniable skill that was going to translate, shooting, but he still went at the bottom of the first round because he was not a great athlete, short arms, 22 instead of 19. And the Grizzlies still decided this is a guy who will work perfectly for what we're trying to build. And he has worked perfectly for what they're trying to build.